What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Run with Toby podcast. I'm Jared. We are on episode 26. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. And actually, this is our first episode back from our break that we took. Had to take a little 2-week break from the podcast just because of some internal client work that we had going on. We just didn't have a chance to get everything scheduled to run out for those 2 weeks. So I apologize to any of you out there that missed us if you did, but thanks for joining us again. So in this episode, we sit down with Daniel DeArco. Daniel is an LA-based photographer, filmmaker, and fabricator of all things, which is quite crazy, and it's super interesting to hear that story. But he sat down with us and told us the importance about commercial photography and just photography in general, the landscape that it's sitting in right now because of social media, because of consumer cameras being able to do amazing things, because of your iPhone being able to shoot amazing things. Daniel kind of gives us his overview and his thoughts on where things are going, and he breaks it down really well in the episode. He also talks about the experience that he had and what actually drove him into photography. He had a pretty bad accident, which he goes into pretty good detail about, and that led him into picking up a camera and starting to shoot kind of on the side for fun, which ended up leading into a passion that he's had for storytelling visually. So it's a really interesting episode. I think you guys will really enjoy it. Make sure you rate, subscribe, and tell a friend about the Run with Toby podcast, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for joining. All right, what's going on, Andrew?
Not much, man. Back on the horse again.
Yeah.
Seems like we've taken a little bit of a break, but coming back strong.
2-3 weeks. I don't remember, but yeah, we're back at it.
Cool.
Really excited about today's episode. We have an awesome special guest again. We'll go ahead and get into him in just a second. But how you been? Everything good?
It's good, man. I'm going on vacation in a couple of weeks, so actually never. Before, when I go on vacation, I just wouldn't think about it until like the day before.
You don't want to get
going.
senioritis?
Yeah, exactly. But I'm definitely thinking about it a lot more these days. So I'm going to Europe for like 10 days. And yeah, I'm looking forward to decompressing. So
cool.
What about you?
Man, just riding the horse. Yep. Just grinding. It
definitely doesn't feel like summer right now.
No summer break. Yeah, just been grinding. No, it's good. Getting a lot of stuff done. The break was nice from the podcast because we were able to kind of reline things up and kind of get things set back in alignment, I guess you would say. But yeah, really looking forward to today's interview. So let's go ahead and introduce Daniel DeArco. What's going on, Daniel?
Not much, just sitting here. It's been a pretty nice day, pretty nice week, but it's been really, really hot. So I'm glad you guys have the AC on because I sweat like a mofo.
Yeah. Same here, man.
It actually finally did cool down. And so our side of the office downstairs, we don't have AC down there. So it's just like me and Jared sitting in a room with no ventilation, no AC for sweating 8 hours plus a day.
Nice. Good start. Yeah.
So yeah, we got to know each other pretty well. But glad that you brought the weather up from Long Beach with you.
It's
man.
A pleasure. Yeah, nice to be here.
Definitely. Thank you first off for taking some time out of your busy schedule. You're a super busy guy. We're going to go ahead and get into that for sure. But yeah, thank you so much for making a trip up here and hanging out with us for a little bit. So yeah, let's go ahead and introduce Daniel. So I'm just going to hit the highlights real quick and then definitely correct me if I miss anything or if I misspeak. But I met Daniel probably about, I guess it's almost been 3 weeks, maybe a month now.
I feel like it's been like 2 weeks. I don't know.
Has it? Oh, maybe it has. Maybe I lost track of time.
Relationship in the fast lane. Whoa.
Maybe I feel like I know you longer because I was watching some of your social stuff, some of your YouTube channel, and Oz actually introduced us. So maybe that's why I feel it, because your name has been in the office circulating for
cool.
Maybe a little over a month now. Yeah,
we've had many adventures, I guess.
Yeah,
like subcontext.
So you got connected with us through Portrait Meet. I think that's how you met Oz.
Yeah. Well, I met him actually. Go on.
No. I'm like probably paraphrasing, but I think that's how Portrait Meet's kind of like how things got connected here somehow.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely. Well, I was doing a shoot and I was running low on time to gather everything together because I had basically a model that I was shooting with, and then I had a makeup artist. And then the first week we tried planning the shoot, the makeup artist was like, "Oh, I got sick and I can't really make it." So I was like, "Okay, so we can't do it this week." The next week, the model, she also backed out. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to go full on and just try to find a team and everything. And it's like, I might as well. I'm already this far in. So I got an agency model, and I got like another makeup artist and some other people to help out. And then I was like, oh yeah, I need a studio though. So I reached out on Instagram and I was like, hey, does anyone know of a studio local in LA or something that I could use for a shoot, just for like an afternoon, like a half day shoot, like a test shoot. And then Oz, he reached out to me and he was like, hey, there's this place called Unita. I work at it. You're more than welcome to shoot here. And it's a really nice studio.
Awesome.
So then that's how I met Oz. I checked it out a day before. Then we hung out like briefly then. Then during the shoot, he helped me out. And then the next day, I came to the portrait meet. And that's how I met your other guest, John.
Yep, we had John on. Yep.
Yeah, who's an awesome guy. And then, it just sort of like snowballed from there. I met, Fox or Mike.
Yep.
And I met you, and I met like a whole bunch of other people. So
and
it's been fun.
E, who we're going to have on the podcast, I believe sometime later this week or next week.
Yeah.
So cool. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, this particular co-working space is really, really good at connecting.
Beautiful.
Different types of people from all walks of life and business. So
yeah.
That's cool. So as the audience can now tell, we're going to go ahead and jump into today's topic. But Daniel is what he calls an experimental photographer. And I definitely want to touch on that because you do have some really cool stuff that you've posted, through Instagram and also through YouTube. So I definitely want to jump in that. But he's also a filmmaker and a fabricator, which is the curveball of the thing, because that's pretty awesome.
Pretty random.
Yeah, definitely pretty random. But he's been shooting professional photography for over 10 years and has a love for showing and teaching the art of creative storytelling. I think that pretty much sums it up. At least that's what I've kind of pulled away from our conversations.
Well, I think the hard part about the whole labeling format for me is like I started doing YouTube just as like a personal outlet. I was kind of just
When did you start on YouTube?
Oh man, so I've had a YouTube channel for maybe the past 5 years, but I was super, super inactive. Like I never uploaded anything. So I think when I actually started posting more frequently in 2017, which even now I only have like 20 videos out. I only had maybe 3 or 4 videos out there. And so those are all BTS stuff. And when I started posting online, it was more me just expressing like my lifestyle and like what I like to do in my free time. It was kind of me getting away from like all the industry BS. Because you kind of get so caught up in the work and the business side that you kind of lose the creative juices flowing.
Oh, yeah, dude.
So I was like, okay, I just want to make videos for fun. And it started out as BTS and like maybe a vlog or two, which I hate vlogging, but ironically, I made a vlog about last week's incident.
Well, we might dive into that.
We'll talk about that. And so then one day I did a BTS video where I showed myself building props for like a beauty shoot. I was shooting with 2 models, 2 agency girls, and had like a whole team together. And it wasn't something that I was going to put in the video, but I was like, I like this stuff. So I'm going to put a video of me using an angle grinder and cutting like stainless steel or something, like sheet metal, whatever. And then my friends who were photographers were like, dude, I didn't know you did that. I said, it's just a hobby of mine. I like building stuff and everything. I've always liked doing that. And they said, you got to make that your thing, like do more of that. So in the past year, I've been kind of experimenting a lot with both combining photography and fabrication, also just, digital storytelling. That's what I like to consider myself as more of an overall digital storyteller.
Nice.
Yeah.
And the education part is the part where, and I know you're not like, hey, this is a tutorial. This is how we're going to do it. Yeah. But the way you deliver the information is educational, and it's not, it doesn't feel like, hey, eventually I'm going to make money off of this educational video.
Sure.
It doesn't feel like that, which a lot of YouTubers, as you've seen, and that's a big space right now, just digital education.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So, I think it's pretty awesome that, that's how you've kind of run your YouTube channel, which is kind of like what made me gravitate towards a lot of your videos is your ability to storytell in that capacity. Cool. So, all right, because we touched on a bunch of stuff there. Let's talk about, let's take a step back and go back to like your education.
Yeah.
How you got into photography, things like that.
Yeah. So there was one thing I will probably correct, about what you said was, I haven't been doing professional photography for 10 years, but I did start 10 years ago. And so what happened was it's a long, crazy story how I got into photography, but basically I got into it because of a near-death experience. And so I was going to make a video about this later on, but essentially,
now you have to, because you just,
it's like, okay, now floodgates are open.
There's
I kind of have
teaser
to talk
right
about
there.
it now. Yeah. So this is something I haven't really published a whole lot about, but what happened was I used to be an acrobat. So I was really into like gymnastics and
that
like
explains
tricking
a lot.
and tumbling, all that stuff, and hand balancing. So that was like my thing. I loved that, and I wanted to be in Cirque du Soleil. And then what happened was, like, that was my ultimate dream, was to just travel the world and perform and everything and be an acrobat. And then what happened was in 2011, which I already had a camera back then, but I was only documenting videos and taking pictures for fun. So it wasn't really something that I was serious about. In 2011, when I was training, I was at this level where I was doing like a lot of like double like backflips and stuff like that, like double saltos, whatever. And I was training into what you call a resi pit, which is either you put foam in there or you put mats in there. And so what happened was I was doing essentially like a triple, and then I over-rotated, and then I hit my head on basically like this uninsulated part of the gym floor. So I basically got my head hit with like a sledgehammer in a way. That's how it felt. And so there was like this major crushing noise that I heard inside of my head, and I was like, what the hell was that? And miraculously, I was able to actually still stand up. Like I was like getting up really slowly. But what happened was my whole upper body was not moving correctly.
Oh, wow.
So my arms were moving very slowly like this. It was like slow motion. It was bizarre. And I was like, ooh, I don't know what the heck is happening. I've never broken anything.
But it's not right.
So I was like, it's not right. I was like, okay, this can't be good. So I was pretty negligent back then in the sense that I wasn't aware of like that kind of bodily injury. And I didn't have health insurance. So, you call the ambulance once in, United States. I'm not sure how much that is. It's probably at least over 20,000. I don't know.
It's tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And so I didn't have health insurance. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to do that. And this is back when I lived with family. So my siblings were all out of the house somewhere. And my parents were in Reno celebrating my dad's birthday. And so I was at this gym 14 miles away from my house. And I was like, I got to get back home somehow. I'm going to get home to an ice pack because if it was broken, I'd be dead, right? Like that's kind of like, but that's
this is pre-Uber, right?
Yeah. It's pre-Uber. It's pre-Uber
logic.
Oh my God, Uber! If you existed back then, you would have saved me. But yeah, so
you might not have been in photography. You might have.
No, I was not bleeding.
No blood.
It was all the pain
All
and everything
internal?
was internal. Yeah, and the thing was. That really was my thinking because, obviously when you have a lot of adrenaline and all these chemicals like spinning out of control in your body.
Protecting you basically. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a fight or flight. And so my whole thing was, okay, I'm just going to get back home to an ice pack. And really, you're kind of programmed to think if you break your neck, you die. You know, every single movie we've watched since you were a child, you break someone's neck, they're dead. Or they can't walk. So I was alive and I was walking. So what happened was I ended up like getting into my car. And then I drove 14 miles back to the house. And I couldn't move my upper body here above my chest. And my arms were still able to move, but only by my forearms.
Yeah.
Like this. It's like a robot. And then so I got home. By the time I got there, my whole body was sort of like, it started kind of vibrating with pain. It was pretty wild. And so I lied down the ice pack. I got in bed and like no movement. I couldn't get up. And I was like, holy crap. By the way, can you swear in this podcast? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit. And so my brother, he actually coincidentally came back home. I heard him come inside the front door. And then I was like, David, his name's David. I was like, David, can you come upstairs? And he was like, yeah, what's up? And I went, can you Google symptoms for a broken neck? And he went, why? And I said, because I think I broke my freaking neck. And he was like, yeah, like, it seems like you can't move or anything. I said, no, I'm stuck here, like lying down. And so he looked up all the symptoms. I fit all of them. Body was going to shock. My whole body was literally shaking in pain. And then so he called my sister over. They told the rest of the family, and they were like, okay, we got to call the ambulance right now. They got the EMTs. They came over to where I was. They put me on a stretcher, which it's such an eerie feeling when you hear EMTs and you know it's for you, right?
Yeah.
It's like, ooh.
I've been there. Yeah.
Oh, I want to hear about that later. Yeah. And so they rushed me to the small hospital in my hometown. And then they took x-rays and CAT scans. And then the nurse looked at me and she was like, yeah, your neck's not broken in one place, it's broken in two.
Wow.
And she said, how'd you get here again? And I said, I drove home.
Oh my
And they said, you should not have been able to drive. Like, what's wrong with your body? How is it able to do that? I said, adrenaline? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm awesome.
Yeah. And so I was kind of like super optimistic. I'm like, I'm going to be good. It's going to be great. But they ended up having to transfer me to John Muir, which is in Walnut Creek, Northern California. It's one of the top hospitals in California. And they had to get one of the top neurosurgeons in California to come work on me. So that night they took MRIs, which was an interesting experience because it's kind of like it's like an EDM concert, inside of a little tube.
Yeah.
Or you're lying underneath a car when it's having a meltdown or something. Then they took the MRIs. The doctor came inside and he sat down next to me and he went, "Hey Daniel, first of all, I looked at your X-rays and MRIs and I want to call you one full person, but your head was technically severed from your body."
Wow.
Oh,
and he said, "So you're like your bones, two of them broke. One was like wedged out of place. The other one was split down the middle like a cookie." And he said, "And all the internal ligaments and everything, the tendons, they're like weakened or torn." And he said, "The only reason your head stayed on your body is because your outside muscles here were strong."
Oh,
because I got muscle here from doing all
the
this
training.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the irony is it saved me, but it was also like near-death experience. Right. And so I sat there and I was like, holy crap, I should not be alive.
My head should be like this right now, right?
And I found out that it was, I think I broke the C4 and C5 cervical vertebrae. And the C5 controls the upper arms and the lungs. So it explains why I wasn't able to move my upper arms. And they said, yeah, but if you got into some kind of car accident, somebody hit you, you would have stopped breathing. So you would have died for sure, or just whatever. So they took 3 days to work on my body because I had to leave it broken for 3 days to figure out how to work on me.
Wow.
Like 3 days,
crazy.
Broken neck just started.
It's like Humpty Dumpty.
Putting
Humpty Dumpty back together, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so, they had to figure out how to put me back together. It ended up being a 6 to 8 hour surgery. And because the reason it was critical is because the broken bones were, I think, under 5 millimeters from touching my spinal cord. If it touches, you're
game
gone.
over. Yeah.
Game over. So they replaced my neck, like 50% of it with tantalum and titanium. So it's all metal now, or not all of it,
so
but
you
half
are
of it.
awesome.
I'm like part robot. So, but this actually sparked a lot of curiosity into things like metalworking and things like science and things like technology because they.
So were you more of a science technology guy before?
No,
really.
I've always been kind of like an artsy fartsy kid growing up. I just like
interesting.
Yeah, craftsmanship. I would make like crossbows out of like toothpicks and popsicle sticks, and I would shoot at the dinner table.
I mean, that takes some engineering, I mean, maybe you're just not a naturally born like engineer, you get the physics of it.
Yeah, but so I liked making really, really like artistic novel things like that, and
cool.
I used to like drawing and all that stuff too. But the thing is, like, I was kind of not really into it at that time, and so I had my camera, but I had totally different path, right? Like I was like this artistic kid, but I was wanting to be a performing artist or something.
Yeah.
And so after they finally got me out of the hospital, which I had to learn how to walk over like 5 days or something because I lost like 80% of my muscle. I was like a toothpick.
Wait, so how long were you in the hospital for?
Oh, only like 2 weeks, but 2.5 weeks. But when you're lying there and you're only getting morphine and like Jello and whatever else they feed you, because I was kind of tripping out the whole time.
Right.
You lose muscle like pretty rapidly.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And so, and plus it was like foreign objects. So my body was, I don't want to say rejecting it, but it wasn't used to like metal being in there. So
it definitely has to get used to it.
Exactly. So even me just lying up, that was a full day. Like sitting up was a full day. So I went back home and I was like, ooh, what do I do with my life?
That's pretty heavy, dude.
Yeah, it was like, okay, everything just got ripped away from me. I can't do that anymore because even if I could, I'd be a liability.
Yeah, and I mean, you're a pretty young guy too.
I'm 26 now.
Yeah.
So this happened when I was 19.
Wow.
So yeah, like what happened was I was, home just sort of like trying to reinvent myself and figure out what I want to do with myself. And then I had my camera and I was like, maybe I'll just start taking pictures, whatever. Because I had my camera, I would take videos, but it was photography here and there, but not a whole lot of it. And so I just really dove headfirst into like the creative arts, things like storytelling through video, things like lighting, studio lighting, all that stuff. And then
how'd you dive in? I mean, where'd you start?
Well, a lot of Google, a lot of YouTubing.
Okay.
So what happened was after I got back from this injury, two things. Surprisingly, I got back to training 6 months later.
Wow.
Which I should not have been able to do because they were saying it takes like 9 months to maybe like a year and a half for the bone graft in there to fuse with the spine because it's spinal fusion. And they put a fake bone in there, which grows in and along with the bones. So it's all foreign stuff, right? And it kind of needs time to heal. So I was being pretty dumb and I just went back to training and stuff like that. But I felt fine after like 6 months. And then what happened was I went back to school and I sat there and I finished the classes that I was like kind of late on, because then like the accident happened during like the final exams.
Oh, I see. Got it.
Yeah,
So-
during finals and
So
everything.
you lost the whole semester,
Yeah,
or
like
quarter or whatever.
yeah, finals week. Some of the teachers were like, "Okay, it's totally fine. You can come back and finish," or the other ones were like, "You got an F," right? But
I just broke my effing neck. And
yeah, exactly.
Thanks.
Yeah, but a lot of them were pretty like, they're pretty sympathetic. So what happened was I was, in class after I finished, because I went back the following semester and I went, I don't want to be here. Like, I just had something crazy happen to me. I just want to like find myself, I guess, the cliche, find yourself. And so right after that, I ended up like trying to find work in the creative arts. And I ended up assisting this portrait photographer. Her name's Francie Lucero. Her and I are good friends now. But she would shoot a lot of weddings, and she shot like portraiture and maternity and stuff like that. And I learned a lot from her, just like she was running her own business from her house and everything, just like freelancing. And every single time I wasn't working there, like 3-4 times a week, I was buying speed lights or like getting a new lens and experimenting with things like that. And so it became a very like a gradual thing that I got into over time, but I was just like jumping straight into it. No formal education in photography or anything like that. I was planning on going to school for like maybe photography and marketing, but I realized if I end up marketing myself anyways, why don't I just learn through practical experience right now, like through people who are already doing it.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So today's topic, which I did a terrible job at the intro, but today's topic is basically a little bit of what you just touched on. Using professional photography for your business. Obviously, that could be product or portrait.
Yeah.
Or possibly even, I guess, architecture and real estate, things like that. But how important is professional photography, do you think?
Oh, so I want to preface this by saying that I have a very progressive, not popular opinion about photography because I kind of look to where things are going and I fuse it where things are at now. I don't neglect the past and how things have always been done, but I just think that, tomorrow is coming a lot faster than we think. And so the question was, how important is professional photography?
Yeah, so we get a lot of our clients being a marketing agency.
Yeah.
We do offer creative services along with our marketing services.
Yeah.
But we get a lot of businesses, or they're small to medium sized businesses, and they don't feel like they need to invest in these things.
Yeah.
Because it's always like, oh, I'll just get, my assistant with an iPhone, or,
Yeah.
Or it's build me a beautiful world-class website with no photos or video.
right. Yeah. Which is very common. Yeah.
I think another sort of a question you could couple with that is how important is professional imagery nowadays?
Right.
So with decreasing attention spans, with people not really paying as much attention to fine details, like things that people might be retouching for, 20 hours, let's say, because 10 years ago, if you were to hire a professional photographer, it was like this big deal, right? It was like they are essentially the authority figures for professional imagery and making things look good, at least superficially on print or something. Whereas nowadays, the iPhones are pretty damn good. And, you would think that me, somebody who shoots professionally, like images and stuff like that, I would hate that. But I'm seeing it as sort of like a time to reinvent ourselves. Because, like, here's one thing. If you were to, let's say, like one of your clients, right, for example, or like you yourself, you need to take a really high quality image. And there's like a fleeting moment, or there's something that may be time sensitive. Do you really go to like back to the studio and grab your camera, or do you just reach for your iPhone, right? And then you transpose that question to consumers. Where do consumers grab? They don't really go to Best Buy and buy like a DSLR. They just reach for their iPhones because it's the most convenient. And Apple did an amazing job at doing that. Not just Apple, but any smartphone. So I think that nowadays, professional imagery is important, but it's also taken for granted. I like to think of photography as kind of like the napkin on a dinner table that you expect to be there, right? You use it, you throw it away.
Yeah.
Whereas before, when photography was not as much of a commodity, it was like, oh, look at this like amazing napkin. Like look at the design of the fabrics of it. And it's like you would kind of like marvel at those things. But nowadays it's kind of like
I think just sheer quantity of anything in any field, product, service, whatever. Not to say that maybe the word cheapens is not the right word to use.
That's the right word. That's the right word.
And then Jared and I we both come from the music field and
Okay.
DJ
he was a
backgrounds.
DJ. Yeah.
So we're both DJs, and in fact, I would say, what was it, like mid 2000s or so, like technology enabled
between
the whole analog to digital.
Vinyl, to digital.
So before, like to be a DJ, like you had to have vinyl, or you had to have the equipment to play vinyl on, and then eventually it became CDs and all that. But when it made the leap from like vinyl to CDs, and then eventually CDs to like MP3s or digital music files, what happened was anybody who had a computer could now become a DJ, right? Everyone had a laptop computer or whatever. And basically what happened was in the mid 2000s, there was just this explosion of DJs, and it ended up becoming, it kind of cheapened the art of DJing a little bit, you know, because basically anyone who had an iTunes playlist or whatever, and Serato or virtual DJ could say I could do it, you know.
So you find that it's very similar in like
it's
almost
similar.
Any creative arts.
And when you think of what's the common denominator, right? It's technology, right? Technology is the common denominator that kind of makes that. Yeah. And then it changes, like you said, the paradigm a little bit, right? With how professionals have to look at how they do their job.
It's almost like the cost to entry is completely like gone. Yeah. Like you could just go to the store now.
We're seeing that in the filmmaking business in general, right? Because places like, or companies like Netflix, HBO, Hulu, you know, they're doing quality at a quarter, half the budget that these things used to be shot on, you know, and now, I mean, obviously YouTube is with filmmaking on YouTube. It's like, you know, you could go buy a Red and shoot a really cool documentary and put it on YouTube, you know, and it would be just as good as hiring a documentary team, you know, back in the day. So
yeah, sorry, going back to what you were saying earlier. So you said that, like, how do let's elaborate on maybe how professionals need to change the way they maybe approach media development or photography or visual imagery.
I think so. Speaking specifically with photography, so like you said earlier, there's a paradigm shift with basically access, right? So unless you're in a third world country, and unless you're suffering from like constant power outages and you don't have access to like a store where you can buy it, or at least order online to have it shipped to you, because some people don't even have internet or electricity, right? Right. Like a lot of people actually. But if you lived in a country where you can still have access to the things, then what you have to do is not necessarily, in my opinion, I think you have to work on your style and personality. Because the other paradigm shift isn't necessarily that people admire people's work anymore, right? I'm sure this is common in music too. It's like the music sometimes maybe sounds like trash, but they have a lot of followers. Right. Right. So they're admired for their personality and their them being a public figure. So now it's almost
described 90% of Instagram.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So
anyone with a check mark.
Anybody with a check mark. Yeah. Gotta get that check mark.
Hold on. Any subscribers out there, if you have a check mark that was not directed at you.
Yes, it was. So what I think is that I think of it this way. So if I were to back up for just a quick second, I like to categorize the photographers of the now into three categories. There's three generations that I consider after YouTube. So the YouTube explosion, which was 2005-06. After 2005, there was 2005 to 2010. A lot of professional photographers who were either developing or already shooting professionally in that time, they were still getting used to shooting with a lot of DSLRs. Like the DSLR technology was still developing. So they weren't really familiar with YouTube because a lot of professional photographers, they're too busy shooting. They're running businesses, right? And they're trying to brand themselves as somebody who has this amazing work. Whereas like the generation that happened after that, the second gen or second wave, that's where I'm from. Where is 2010 to 2015, where you were developing and then shooting professionally. I'm assuming maybe within a 5-year span, you're developing and then starting to shoot for money. Which is, we were like heavily exposed to the explosion of YouTube content growing, right? And so information being there, but it wasn't always there in 2010. So by the end of 2015, you could find whatever you wanted online.
That's a really good description of the, I guess.
What's the third wave of that?
Third wave. I would consider people who are from 2015 to 2020, which is upcoming, right? Is all the information you would ever need is already there. Like you don't have to go through the development stages of like a platform that has it. It's already there and you can take it for granted. So a lot of the newer generation kids that I see in photography, a lot of things are trendy. A lot of trends, they go like they come up really quickly and they go away very quickly. And the thing is, so there's a heavy influence on things like in post-production, like presets and everything. People are selling presets here and there.
That's a huge thing right now.
Yeah, and so
LUTs and all kinds of stuff. Yeah,
and they kind of take for granted maybe the technology we have nowadays. And so I think that the hard part though is a lot of the new gens that I kind of get hit up by, like people will find my email and they'll message me like their life story or something, all these things that they have questions about, and then they're trying to figure out how to work professionally as a photographer, but they don't even know things like studio lighting. Or how to like operate a speed light, or like
3-point lights.
Yeah, or like what the A stands for on the setting thing on like the setting
Aperture
dial.
Priority.
Yeah.
For all you kids out there.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things like I won't consider those deficits, but I will consider those like things that technology is made so easy that they almost don't have to think about it. And so
why is that important to people who have the technology?
I think the important thing is that people who have technology in this new, let's just say, third wave of photographers, right? They have to acknowledge like the things that they have and not take it for granted too much. So they have to develop like the technical things to be competent, because if a client hires you, right, and one day they're like, oh, it looks a little bit too dark, what can you do about that? You kind of don't want to be the guy that's like, oh, we'll just brighten up in post. Like you want to be somebody who's like, if you have a light in your trunk, you can probably whip it out if time allows. And you want to tell them that, right? Because you also want to speak from like an authority figure.
So again, drawing the DJ comparison here.
Super. No, it's a great analogy. Yeah.
No, yeah. So in the DJ world, not to get too nerdy or technical here, like you'd have two songs that are at 2 different beats per minute.
Yeah.
And you'd manually have to match one song to the other song and mix them in, right? And that's sort of the heart of, that's the heart of what a DJ does. Song selection, whatever, right?
Yeah, I don't know anything about that in a different.
But yes, from a technical standpoint, that's the heart of what a DJ.
Okay,
it's moving one thing, and it's not difficult.
Yeah,
but you have to train yourself. You have to train your ear to be able to differentiate what song is in front or behind or whatever.
There's like finesse to it.
There's a little bit of finesse to it, but eventually, when you get it, it's like riding a bike.
Okay,
right? But what happened when all the digital tools came out, like you literally just had to press a button and both tracks would sync up, which actually gives you the ability to do a lot more cool things other than trying to get both songs to match. But a lot of people, there was this huge kind of like debate out there, like the sync button, like, is that destroying DJing? And what Jared is alluding to is kind of like, does it really matter? Does it really matter? But at the heart of it, like, I always use the analogy, like, what if your computer took a shit or whatever, and you actually have to go mix, on a proper pair of CDs.
Yeah.
But I think what you're saying, actually, as a professional, being able to present yourself and saying like, hey, like, this isn't looking right now. Here's a couple things or more analog things that I can do to pull out. And that, I think that gives you clout in front of your client to some extent as well, right?
Yeah, because the thing is, as soon as you start doing photography for money, you have to think of it like from a business standpoint too.
Yep.
Like you still want to maintain the artistic and the creative aspect to what you do. That's why it's important to do like personal projects too. But the thing is, when a client hires you, they're expecting that they hire you because they don't want to deal with the technical stuff.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you go to a mechanic and they're like, I want to get an oil change. And then they're like, oh, but you got to like maybe rotate your tires and do all this. And the reason you rotate your tires is because da-da-da. And it's going to take us like 7 hours and et cetera, et cetera. It's like they're making their job sound so hard. Right. And you're like, I just want to get it fixed really quick. And I leave, go to the mall for an hour, come back, So with photography, it's like, you're kind of expected to understand all these things and really be able to communicate to the client that you can do them really efficiently, and then if it's like a point, like I said earlier, where the client isn't happy with the result, you have to be able to think really quickly about what you can do, sometimes technically, to fix it. And
on the spot.
Yeah, not necessarily like in post, because the thing is, if like a client is like, oh, we don't like that zit or something, it's obvious you can't do anything about that. You have to fix it in post, right? You have to retouch it out of the model or something. But if they're like, it seems a little bit dark, can we add some light to it so her face pops more or something? You don't really want to be the guy, again, who's like, we'll just brighten up the shadows in post, it's all good. Because on the screen, if you're tethering, that's all they're going to see is the dark shadows, and they're not really convinced that it's going to be fixed later on.
Yeah, it's interesting that you use that as like your example on, like how to interact with a client. I spent a lot of time when I was in visual effects on set, and that when we're filming, that let's fix it in post thing just comes up every 5 seconds. And being part of the post production, that was always like, hey,
it's like an inside joke, right?
Yeah, it's totally an inside joke. But that was always like the thing, like, oh, we'll just fix it in post. We'll just fix it in post. And I could tell when directors and cinematographers knew what they were doing, how to massage the client. Not necessarily massage in a bad way, but just make them feel comfortable, make them feel confident in the work. Versus the guy who's just like, yeah, we'll fix it in post. Don't worry about it.
So it was funny because I was at the portrait meet that he just talked about. Maybe like, what was that, last month? Time's flying. Yeah. I don't know. Time's flying. But there was a guy there who I was just chatting with, and I was like, I wasn't shooting, but I was just kind of like watching everyone, relaxing, and I made conversation with this guy who was taking pictures, and then I was like, oh, you get some good shots? And he went, yeah, I think so. I think I got some good photos. And I was like, oh, like, do you have any favorites or stuff that you like the most? And he went, I'm just excited to get back in Photoshop and like edit them. And I was like, I feel like you would want to like the photos in the camera generally before you get in Photoshop, because I hate being in Photoshop. I hate sitting down on my butt and just like editing for like 15 hours.
It does take quite a long time.
It takes so long. And then, sometimes like a simple piece of clothing or something you could just like pull down or something and rub off. That's like a 5-second fix. Yeah. Whereas it could be a 5-minute fix per image in post. So you're thinking large quantities too.
Yeah.
Right?
We always used to talk about that in post. Like, you could spend 30 seconds fixing that right now, or you can spend $30,000 sending a team to do that 2 weeks out.
Sure.
Like, what do you want to do?
What you do that was way more intense though, like visual effects. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it's just an amplification of one image, right? It's one image, but
it's funny because even my, I guess, very amateur sort of introduction to the creative side of our business, working with Jared, it's funny how we'll be on like a shoot with our clients, and then they're like, "Oh, you'll be able to fix that with movie magic, right?" Yeah. And then Jared looks at me like, "Fuck no, we're doing that again." But I like what goes through the normal person's mind as to like what has to happen to make it
like Avengers was really shot like it showed up on screen.
Yeah, exactly. Like all of that was, exactly.
But it's kind of arbitrary too, because then it becomes a compromise of time and efforts, right? Because if let's say you have like a bitchy model or something who's very impatient, or you have a client who's like really running low on time, and they're like, can we just like move to the next look or the next like location or something or next concept? And then it's kind of like you have to. Yeah, sure. You have to. We'll
pick your battles.
Whatever.
You got to pick your battles for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but it never hurts to to suggest like, oh, we have a light in the car, something we can just bring out or
get
something.
Get it right in camera, man. Just get it right in camera.
Yeah, because then you're also thinking about the cinematographer is thinking about you.
Yep.
And like I'm thinking about a retoucher who I might outsource to later on. Like, given I'm not retouching myself, so yeah, you don't want to piss everybody off. Yeah.
I wish we need to figure out a way to break this down and send it to our clients, like the little 1 minute clips we do. Yeah, we'll transcribe it
like
into a blog.
Just like
into a blog post and then send it off to them.
So let's move into the business side. You talked about a little bit earlier, like you thought about going to marketing school to learn how to market yourself as a photographer. So since you didn't, what are you doing now to like win new clients? I mean, obviously referrals probably a huge thing.
That's probably the biggest one.
Is it?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest one. I do run some ads on Instagram and I'm not on Facebook anymore. I just it's so political now.
Facebook's an interesting place.
Or you only see like cats and memes and stuff like that.
What kind of ads are you running on Instagram?
So I'll take a post that I've posted earlier, or like an image I shot, or like a video teaser of something I've done, and I'll sort of strategically grab a snippet of like that video. That's like the climax or like the best part of the video. And then I'll just like run an ad for that.
Do you run it on stories, or do you run it just through the regular feed?
I've never tried the stories.
Yeah. So try the stories.
We can do that?
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah. It's actually becoming, I personally think it's
but it's a lot more native.
Good point. You have a very captive audience, and if they're watching,
you might see an ad of mine.
Yeah. So how do you target the ad, and who do you try to put the ad in front of?
So this is one thing that I wanted to kind of like talk a little bit more about, is sort of like target audiences. Like a lot of photographers in Los Angeles, like people, they come to LA, right? And they're like, oh, I'm going to go to LA because that's where all the work is. That's where all the creatives are. That's where all the resources are. This is where you collaborate. Yeah, it's where everything is. But the thing is, the other like 40-something states in the US, they still need photographers too. So, you come here and actually, I'll tell you a story. There's this guy who I won't name, but let's just call
We'll link it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it ends on a good note. So even if I said his name, it'd be a good thing. But let's just call him Matt. So this guy, Matt, I told you I used to be an acrobat and everything. So I still train sometimes in Santa Monica for fun, just for fitness, like once or twice a week. And there's this guy named Matt who was learning how to do like a basic handstand. And, me and my acrobat friends were kind of coaching him. He was total noob, didn't know how to do it. And then he finally learned it. And we were like, good job, Matt. Not half a year later, I see ads on Instagram of him trying to promote his online course for how to learn handstands in 6 weeks. Or 3 weeks or 5 weeks, whatever. And I was like, this mother effer. I was like,
he beat you to it.
I was like, we helped you learn that, and you just learned it. You're not like an authority figure, and you haven't even learned it for whatever. So and there are people doing insane stuff over there, right?
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, we're still friends, but I was kind of like, every time I saw him. And what happened was, like, I always saw his ads, like literally every week, probably once a week. And I was like, damn it, I blocked these ads. He's my buddy, but damn. And eventually I saw him in person. Maybe like 8 to 12 months had passed by since that moment. I saw him in person maybe like 2 months ago, and we're just chit-chatting and stuff like that. And I was just catching up with him about his business plan and what he's doing and everything.
His ad.
His ad.
How's your ad going?
Yeah. Hey, that ad I always see like 5 times a week. And he told me that he sold 1,200 spots for his class.
Wow. Unbelievable.
There you go.
And he told me, he was like, Daniel, I know that, he said, I'm aware that everyone here is better than me and everyone here is so proficient at what they do and they're like experts and everything. But he said, but you know what? There's not always like a yoga teacher. He's a yoga teacher. He said, there's not always yoga teachers in like Massachusetts or like, Sri Lanka or Milwaukee or Dusseldorf, wherever. He said, there's not as many people doing yoga out there as there are here. And he said, so, while they're like expert yogis, literally a stone's throw away from where we're standing right now, he said, I'm marketing to the kid who's never seen a handstand in his life. And he thinks it's like the most amazing thing ever. And I was like, damn it, that's a genius.
Yeah, it's pretty smart.
And to be fair, I think a lot of us try, we all want to aim high. We want to go for that A+, whatever, celebrity, whatever, right? But there's something to be said about what's called, I call it the prosumer market, right? Whether it's photography or DJing or whatever, because they got money to spend and they want to learn it. And they have the passion to almost have that technical expertise that a professional would have, and they want to learn.
Exactly.
And as long as you're, there's a funnel for everything. You can build a marketing funnel for everything. Handstands, digital marketing courses, like that stuff.
And the thing is, like, for somebody like who sees yogis practicing all the time or even does yoga, they might not see it as like a necessity. But to somebody who's in like maybe the Midwest, not assuming things about them because there is a lot going on out there. Maybe that kid doesn't have a hobby, so he wants to learn it. And so I think that there is definitely work in Los Angeles because a lot of us try to find bread and butter. We have to find local work that we can't always fly out for.
Sure.
So it is good to find something that you can shoot like pretty frequently or clients you can shout frequently wherever you live. But then it's more like not limiting yourself to like the stereotypical audience that you want to shoot for. Like
how often do you travel? How often do you go to your clients?
Well, a lot of my clients are actually out here.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice. But the thing is, so the story that happened with Matt, it was more of an eye-opening thing that happened with me like the past 2-3 months.
Oh yeah.
And and so I've begun running more ads and like sending out emails and everything to different states and whatnot. Cool. I've been getting more feedback, but it's one of those things I'm now experimenting more with, just because the market in Los Angeles is getting more saturated. And I did fly out to Pennsylvania with my buddy like last year or something to shoot like ads or commercial like videos or whatever for their trucking company.
Oh, cool.
And I have some clients who are in Miami or prospects who might want to hire me to go out there, but generally I do shoot a lot of e-com and stuff like that in Los Angeles just because I get referrals.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's sort of in the spectrum of like target marketing. Like where photographers should look for work, because I think everyone thinks they have to come to LA just to find a job, whereas they don't really have to.
I think for when you run any business, I actually was on the phone with someone today who has a small business. And I think you have to have like different legs to your marketing. So you've got to do some referral. Like, how do you work your referral network and get more leads from referrals?
Right.
Obviously, those leads convert usually at the highest rate, right? But then also, how do you do what we call inbound marketing, getting people to come to you? How do you also do outbound marketing too? I mean, how do you go out to people and get yourself out there by running ads and things like that? So I think every business, no matter how big or small you are, especially actually for the small one, is you got to have certain legs to your marketing strategy, and obviously invest more time on what's going to yield you the best probability of getting a lead. But don't neglect the other ones too.
It's like just different pillars in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
a lot of clients come to us, they're like, we just want social, and it's like, no, social is just like one channel. Like, you got to work the other channels.
Based on the topic we were talking about a second ago, like Ramit Sethi, he's an amazing finance guy, amazing like accounting type guy, business strategy type person. He said that you just have to find clients in general, no matter where they are geographically. They have the money and the willingness to spend that money. So if they are in like maybe not LA, but they're in Nevada, that's still like a really good gig because it's not even that far away.
Right.
But you're still looking outside of LA, which is where everyone thinks you have to come just to find work. But yeah, there's a lot you could do, really.
So what are you currently working on? Let's dive into some of the nerdy stuff, like mechanics and like I want to dive into that because one of the videos that you put up on your YouTube channel, I know we're taking a total right turn, but one of the videos
left hook.
That was my left. You made this amazing supersonic camera slider. I'm calling it supersonic, but
supersonic.
Yeah,
like breaks the sound barrier.
And somehow doesn't suffer rolling shutter, which every other camera does. Let's just talk about like some of the projects you're working on. Outside of just your normal filmmaking and photography, and I definitely want to dive into your YouTube channel and the community you've kind of built.
Well, interesting thing about the rolling shutter thing. So I got a lot of people who are like, I don't read forum comments about me just because people feel safe enough to hate on people in a third-party website. Right. So a lot of people on YouTube,
trolls.
Exactly. Like I did this shoot with like an inverted room. It was like we built a sideways room, and we had a dancer doing poses and everything on the wall, but it looked like she was sideways, right? And it was like pretty epic, and we had a lot of fun doing it. It was just for fun. And then all these guys were like, "Oh, he copied Fred Astaire from like the 50s or something." I don't know, whatever. And I was like, "Do you really think I watched Fred Astaire?" And I'm like 26, but yeah, so there are people saying like, "Oh, I wonder if it gets rolling shutter and da-da-da." But the thing is, imagine how many people are traveling at like 40 miles per hour or something with a camera in their hand.
Right. Well, you can see the rolling shutter, but...
Right. I mean, but also forward too. I mean, some people shoot from helicopters.
Most people don't even know what it is.
Exactly. So, and a lot of times it's not that noticeable. So, I think it's because it was like this thing just like sitting there and speeding like back and forth. People were like,
it's super cool, man. I watched that video like probably 5 times in a row.
Seriously?
Yeah,
Thank you.
It was really cool. I mean, I'm probably on the nerdier end of the spectrum.
Okay.
I'm like, which is why my first question was like, wait, how is he solving the rolling shutter problem?
Yeah.
Because that's a big thing in visual effects, dealing with that in the post process. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably there, but I just didn't really like too much.
Most people would never notice it.
Yeah. But so to answer your question, I'm introducing a lot of those like personal projects on my YouTube channel just because it adds context to like creative storytelling that I could show the viewers. But things that I'm working on, I would like to build over time. It might take like a year or two or something, but like a 6-axis robotic arm.
You have a CNC machine, right?
I do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you have your own CNC machine.
How big is it?
I have a lot of things that normal people shouldn't have. Mine.
You should open a co-working space for a metal shop or like
Well, the thing is, I want to move out of Long Beach, so I am looking for a place to like dump all my stuff and just
don't move up here then.
Well, not here, but maybe like a garage somewhere or some kind of like a shared creative space, artist space, where they think that's totally fine. But what were we talking about?
Your CNC machine.
Oh, yes, I have that. So I use that for, I like to prototype a lot of potential products that I could release in the future because, I'm always thinking about, the future and everything and what I could do outside of photography. I don't want to be like the 60-year-old photographer who has like a broke back, is carrying like C-stands and everything. It's like, I don't want to be that guy. So
you already broke your neck, so.
Oh, yeah.
Like
It's like
that's kind of why we got out of the DJ game. We don't want to be the 60-year-old DJ carrying our laptop bag
or yelling at kids who are carrying laptop bags.
It sounds like a young man's game for sure. A lot of creative arts and everything. But I have I prototype things out of aluminum and everything, like metal, whatever. Maybe carbon fiber in the future or something.
So did you teach yourself like CAD design and oh wow, that's cool.
Usually I'll watch maybe 2 to 3 tutorials which put you in a project. Like, here's this vase we're going to make today.
Right.
Yep.
And then you do it and you're like, okay, I'm tired of making vases. I'm just going to make whatever I want. And so I kind of learned the ropes of like CAD from doing like 3 projects. And I just started designing like random stuff. And so the slider, majority of those parts were 3D printed, but then it was just kind of like messy looking. So, we put it in a cardboard box. And people were like, oh, interesting how you don't show the electronics. I'm like, because it looks like shit. I'm not going to show it. But yeah.
So you do read the forum comments.
I've read it and then gotten traumatized and I never went back.
Cool.
Yeah. But I have plans of building a lot of stuff like just for like purely entertainment purposes on the YouTube channel. Not necessarily practical or like DIY tutorials because not everyone has like a 3D printer or something. So, the people I collaborated with doing that channel, Mango Street, love those guys. They just got married, so if they're out there, congrats. But they were like texting me. I was texting Daniel. His name's also Daniel. And then he was like, yeah, dude, my favorites are the ones where you build stuff. And I'm like, you don't even care about the photography? All right. So now it's becoming like I have this mission to help content creators and photographers and filmmakers find their voice through like their storytelling techniques. Like I kind of help them find their style and everything. That's the mission I want to go on. But I also have this other half of my channel where I entertain people with my own personal creative projects. Like I execute them. So that's me sort of like demonstrating how I would do a creative project or video.
Who's the audience that you think is sort of gravitating towards this community that you're building? So who do you think they are?
Well, the first year I didn't have a goal. So it attracted a lot of different people from different, necks of the woods. And then I recently did not recently, but a while back, I did like some questionnaires or something asking like, people in the comments what they want to see more of on the YouTube videos and everything. And I got some people who are like engineers and DIY people, some makers, some photographers, some filmmakers. And I was like, I don't like this. I don't like how it's a little bit too spread out too early. So what I want to do is I kind of want to refocus it back to people who are like content creators, photographers. Focus on them, like give practical advice on how to find their photography style, like what to do on set, how to talk to models, things like that. It's a little more vloggy. But I also want to do the other personal creative projects just to like remind them of like storytelling techniques that I like to utilize in my videos. So kind of like demonstrating, the credibility thing. Because if some guy's just talking to the camera and then he has no proof of videos that he makes or like creative projects he makes, then it's kind of
you don't want to be handstand guy?
No. Definitely not. Yeah, but my audience, generally speaking, it's 16. If I have read it correctly, it's 16 to 25-year-old people. Like they're very, very millennial. Because I'm like a pretty young guy, a young-looking guy too. And then and they're interested in like photography and just general like visual arts. So I get some people who are like maybe sketch artists or like stop motion people or filmmakers or like content creators or whatever. But generally, it is people who are creative and they're trying to create content.
Cool.
So.
That's actually a good, and again, for anyone out there who is building their community or has a community, use that technique of a survey. It's actually really important to understand like why people are there, what they're looking for. Surveys
finding out what they don't like is, sometimes a lot more important than actually what they do like.
And it becomes a content strategy guiding tool to figure out what am I going to create next, or what's the next direction I'm heading in with this next bulk of content that I'm going to create.
Yeah, because there's also the balancing act of what's already out there and what can I actually contribute to. So, going back to the folks Mango Street, they do a lot of educational photography tutorials, basically taking
That's
them.
kind of how they got their crazy run.
Oh man, yeah. When I met them when they were 4 months into it and they already had 100,000.
Wow.
And I think now they're up there. They're maybe 600,000. No, it's like 600,000-700,000. I think.
Oh, okay.
Unless it's gotten bigger, but their focus was like shortening photography tutorials so they're not redundant and like wording and information is just straight to the point, and it's quick. It's maybe 3 to 5 minutes. And so them doing that was very smart, very strategic, because they knew exactly which part of the market to
they
tap
found
into.
the gap in the market.
So it's another content strategy is that you can do what everyone else is doing, but present it in a better way, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The problem with me was that I don't really like tutorials, like making tutorials.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of information and research you have to do to make sure you're not effing up your words and the things that you say. And then also there's a bajillion already out there. So if this was, again, going back to the generation thing, if this was me back in 2010 and I were to search, studio lighting tutorial, 5 years ago versus now, it's like 8 years down the line. There's probably at least 1,200 or like thousands of
you might have gotten like one page and now you'll get like hundreds of pages.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And so like information's also become a commodity. And Mango Street found a gap in the sense that like they found information they could relay. Maybe it's stuff that might be on Google or forums or it's already there, but they just condense it down to a really bite-sized thing that they know short attention span millennials will have, like the capacity for, because nobody really likes to watch a 15 or 20-minute video nowadays. If they do, it might be something like metalworking where they want to pay attention to all the details. But creative people, we already have kind of this ADHD thing about us anyways. So them making a tutorial that's 3 to 5 minutes is very smart. Where for me, my problem was I don't like making tutorials, and people were remarking more about like, I guess my execution of creative ideas and my personality than the actual like information, I guess. So now I'm trying to work the personal branding angle of me being more of like a personality, I guess, as opposed to like teaching.
You have to be. And since we work with like a lot of smaller to medium-sized businesses, a lot of times the people that are, the head of the company are the personal brand of the company as well. And they're so attached. It's like a one-to-one thing. But a lot of times they don't understand that connection. Like you're a billboard. You're going to be the best promoter for your business. Nobody knows it like you do. Nobody's going to like show it better than you.
Absolutely.
You've got to get yourself out there.
And this is where things are going, because like I mentioned earlier, people aren't really remarking on people's work as much as they used to. They're remarking on them.
Well, there's no differentiator, right? The differentiator is the person.
Exactly. So they're remarking more on like them cohesively, how their personality and their style matches with their work. So a lot of brands, it's like, again, the authority figures used to be like a professional photographer. Oh, this professional photographer is going to make everything look amazing. Yeah. They know lighting, they know composition, color, retouching.
Medium format camera.
Medium format, like a Phase 1 or a Hasselblad. Oh my God. But now it's more like, this photographer has a great style. He also has like 100,000 followers.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
And he's a really funny guy. He looks like he'd be cool to hang out with for a whole day on set.
Right. So now things are a lot more integrated and cohesive with like you as a human being. So
it's on, and we actually touched on this. I don't remember what episode, but we talked about personal branding quite a bit. It's the old school thought, like when you would go, super old school, you go to like, the drugstore, you're going to go and see Carl at the drugstore because he owns the drugstore. You go to that one because you like Carl, or you're going to go get your shoes repaired at, X, Y, and Z because Rob and he repairs shoes.
Good point.
So it's full circle, it's coming back around to that because everything has become so flat and saturated. The only thing that's going to be different is the person.
Yeah. And I guess, it wasn't, so everything I'm talking about with the direction of my channel, it wasn't really declared internally for me until recently. So
it was something you were just kind of feeling out over time?
Yeah, I was just making random stuff that I felt I was gravitating towards. But then people started emailing me like, hey, I just moved to LA. What do I do? I'm like, why did you move to LA? Like, God.
First question, why would you move to LA?
And like number two is, why wouldn't you know what you're getting to when you move here?
It was like, I'm hoping you can be my guide or like my savior. So I'm like, seriously, kid? Like, no. Like, talk to your mom.
Talk to your mom.
Or like, there are people asking me like for advice on how to get, their work out there or clients or scene or whatever. And the thing is, they're only trying to utilize their work. And I think that the future really is the person behind the camera too. And so photographers do kind of need to do this, right? Not vlogging per se, but just showing more of their process and their execution and why they do what they do. So my mission is to kind of help, because it's like this. Storytellers tell stories of brands, right? But who tells the story of the storyteller? Like, what's their story? What are they about? What are they doing? Their back.
That was a very Gary V type statement.
Yeah.
Well, it's and I'll actually bring this back to the DJ thing again, which is that as before you could have a promoter, a manager.
Oh, yeah.
They would take care. Now you actually until you get into that upper echelon, like you basically need to do it all. And you got to be the right personality to get the promoters to like you.
I learned about Facebook ads, and I think this guy did too.
DJing,
exactly. I got to get
DJing. You got to learn how to promote yourself. You have to market yourself. And I think
it was like MySpace kind of.
No, right, exactly. Yeah. That's
how I learned how to design. Was like I needed to, like, I was a DJ. I was going to school for one thing, and I didn't really like it. But I was like, I want to make business cards and CDs and like hand flyers out. I was like, what's Photoshop? And I got into Photoshop, and then that led into another thing.
But that is another example of how like you can't just focus on your craft. Unfortunately,
exactly.
Right? I mean, we all just want to do what we love to do. But it's become a lot more than that, I think, right?
Yeah.
And building your own personal brand, like you're saying, is an important aspect of it.
Well, it's funny because I remember posting a video. So I did a shoot with this ballerina one time where it was very avant-garde, but we had this concept where we tied like ropes to her arms and one of her feet. And so she did this crazy flexible pose. And it was as if she was being pulled into this incredibly flexible like form, right? And so the photos were posted and people loved the photos. But then when I posted the video, I don't know if it was just like luck or something, but that video got over 100,000 views on Instagram.
Oh, wow.
And then whereas the photo, maybe several hundred. But it was like, okay,
the photo looked, I mean, here in my personal first thought would be like, that's Photoshop.
Right.
I could recreate that. A good Photoshop artist could do that. But then when you see the video, it brings a little bit more life to it, a little bit more reality.
Yeah, and people, because, one of my old photographer friends would tell me that he would go into meetings sometimes, and he would have like this image like shot of like, he did a lot of work for like HBO and like Sports Illustrated, like he does a lot of sports portraits of like those figures, and he would do like this photo shoot that he was so proud of, like he had so much pride in it, a lot of lighting techniques. It was like his favorite images that he would show in the meeting, and the client would go like this. They would just
That's
keep
how
going.
it always is, man.
Yeah, and it was like it's like right in the heart. But you take that to Instagram, and young like 20-somethings, right? And it's like this. It's like sometimes they don't even stop on the image, just like woo, right? It just keeps going.
Yeah.
And so
that's why you got to do ads and stories. The attention span is a lot longer inside.
I'm taking notes, but yeah. So when they see the video symbol or something, right? It's like, I wonder what this is about.
Yeah, totally.
It's a little more, it kind of sparks a bit more curiosity in them. And I've only really came to that conclusion from doing BTS videos, because I would show the photos and they're like, cool, I love this photo. But then you show the actual video and they're like, my God, that's how you did it. It's like, okay, all right.
Yeah. Opening the box, right?
Yeah. So people care a lot about stories because if anything, we're getting so much more. There's so much stimuli nowadays that we kind of want connection to something that we really like. And it's getting harder and harder to find connection to like, photos themselves. Yeah.
I guess maybe one last thought is that we on the surface, like we are exposed to so much stuff, but I actually think now that we can go a lot deeper.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Because there's so many different formats and different types of media that allows people to go a lot deeper.
Yeah.
And I always use Netflix as an example where I don't know if you've seen The Karate Kid.
Oh, yeah.
The movie The Karate Kid, right? Okay.
The new one or like the old one?
Well, both. Have you seen both?
I've seen both.
So the new one, like you can tell the characters get a lot deeper, right? You can go a lot more into the storyline of the characters because you now have like a 10-hour series as opposed to a 2-hour movie, or hell, even 3 or 4 2-hour movies that were terrible.
That's where like the medium of visual storytelling is going.
Yeah, and that's
episodic.
And for us, like that's why I think with our clients, we try to talk a lot about like, hey, the best way, you can hire copywriters all day long, right? But the best way to capture people's attention now is visually, right? Whether it's an image or video or whatever the case is. But
well, like so from like a business standpoint, let's just use the example of like commercial advertising photography, like 10 years ago versus social media. So let's say like you had a campaign you want to run, and whatever brand it might be, they want to have the images ultimately on like posters or billboards or magazines or something. And, you know, photo productions 10 years ago or something were still like pretty big. You know, they weren't like video production, but you would still invest a lot of money into it. And so if there was like a photographer who was charging a lot for it, they don't just charge for the services and the labor, they charge for the licensing, where the images are going to go. Is it going to be like regional or national or international? And like just overall the usage stuff. So like the commercial usage is like an entire thing in and of itself on top of the actual cost of like all the resources and everything. And let's just say it comes to 40 grand for one shoot. Now, realistically, from that one shoot, how many images do you think the client's going to select? Like
like 5.
Yeah, maybe. Or like if it's like 2 or 3 concepts or whatever, or like different looks within that, maybe they get like you said, 5 or 10 or something or 15. And do you think they're really going to want like hundreds of images on all these different, you know, places that they do the media planning for? Probably not. So, or they could hire a social media account manager for 40 grand full time in a year, right? That's their annual salary is 40 grand.
Yep.
And then this person manages the account. They make their own special hashtags to have people identify with that account. They do all the stories. They run the ads. They might even shoot pictures on their iPhones for the account. And they grow the awareness to like whatever, you know, it might skyrocket.
And you can measure it.
Yes, you can measure it too.
Right?
Yeah. Whereas photos, it's really hard, especially if it's like print. Like, how did you measure the
405 gets this much traffic at 2 p.m. on this billboard? You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, well, yeah, we're big proponents of like we've been trying to steer anytime our clients bring up, oh, we need to print this or whatever. We try to steer them away from as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because it's
keep the car accidents down. Less billboards.
Yeah, there you go. Save some trees.
Well, if the billboards all turn to, if everybody drives a Tesla and the billboards all turn to giant OLEDs, then we're running
that
a different
stream
game.
the ad into the Tesla, right?
We got a different game.
Good point. Yeah, so that's kind of where I think, I don't know. I mean, that's at least where I think photography is going is, it's like I said earlier, photography, again, very unpopular opinion, but it's not very novel anymore. And if it is, it's because of the person and the style behind it. But like having a photograph, the access to a photograph is so easy now that the iPhones, they can compete. There is a photo that I'm not sure if this is something I should be ashamed of, but one of my clients posted a photo from one of our previous shoots. And I was like, why did they tag me in it? And it ended up being an iPhone picture. I was like, oh, so I didn't shoot that. That was their iPhone. They took right next to my camera right here. And I guess they edited the photo a certain way so it looked pretty similar, like lighting, composition, like
at least they give you credit.
Yeah, no, they didn't tag me, but I was part of that shoot, and I was the photographer. But then I think it was like the makeup artist who shot it, and I was not mad. I was like, makes sense. iPhones are pretty good now.
Yeah.
I'm
actually. So you said it's an unpopular opinion the way you've. Like some of the things that you talked about.
I think the generation that isn't millennial probably would hate me for saying these things because they'd say I'm perpetuating.
I think it's the truth.
You know, perpetuating the commoditization of photography.
It's the truth, right? I mean, it's the old vinyl DJ being like,
I was that guy.
Kids,
I'm not gonna lie. I was that guy for a couple seconds.
But I'm also between generations, right? Because
I think you straddle that really well.
So it's like,
sure.
like there's a generation of photographers who were just getting used to shooting DSLR for clients because even in 2005, I'm just presuming there were a lot of photographers who still loved film, you know, and so like from 2005 to 2010, I started seeing that there were less photographers who were my peers talking about film. It was just like, oh, I got this like new Canon, 1DS Mark III, Mark IV, whatever. And I'm just like, I'm loving it. And now it's like, we have so much tech that we take for granted. The access is like, you could just go to Best Buy and get like a crazy full frame camera or something, or mirrorless. And so it's not even about access anymore. It's like the photo, take it for granted. Everyone can take photos. Yeah.
So you can't be the grumpy ass artist anymore. You got to have some personality and be easy to work with.
I'm going to be that guy one day.
Well, hopefully you'll be rich by then and not have to worry about money much.
Man, dude, this was awesome.
Yeah,
I could keep talking for like hours, but I think the cameras are going to overheat.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. Yeah,
we've had that problem before. Yeah, dude. Last question: where can people find you?
Oh, okay. So I am on Instagram. At Daniel DeArco, just my name, DANIEL DEARCO.
We'll link it.
It's spelled like DeArco. But I'm also on YouTube, so those are my main 2 outlets now. And so same thing, youtube.com/Daniel DeArco. And I am hoping to upload, well, not hoping, I will be uploading more frequent content on YouTube, and I'm hoping to get it down to weekly on a pretty regular basis.
Nice. That's awesome.
I'm going to link your portfolio, your website also, because you've got some awesome shit on your website.
Notice I didn't say my website.
Yeah, you didn't, which is
oh my gosh.
Marketing 101, lead with your website. Always send the traffic back to yourself before you send it to other platforms.
Yeah, no, I mean, the thing is...
YouTube owns your followers, not you.
No, the thing is, like, I would tell people my website, and then they check my Instagram first nowadays.
Yeah. I mean, Instagram's probably the first. I'm definitely in the belief that Instagram is going to be the second or third search engine in the rankings at some point in the next 5 years because of everybody just like... That's the first thing people go to is Instagram to search for something.
I use my like social media channels as sort of like, this is who I am, this is what I do, and what I'm up to. And the website is like the credibility.
Yeah.
So when I show...
but I want to link your website, dude, because there is some awesome work in there. Oz wanted me to talk about Sofie Dossi.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to get into it, but I didn't want to sound like name drop. Like I didn't want to do that. But the photography, the shots you shot with her are incredible.
Thank you. Oh, there's a BTS video of that one.
Is there? Oh, nice.
Yeah,
okay, cool.
Yeah.
We'll link that in there then.
Yeah, the fire arrow one, right?
Yep. Dude, it's crazy.
Oh, that was...
Now I got to go watch that video.
That was one hell of a day. But it was fun, though. Yeah, so I like doing stuff like that. And we had like... we had a bunch of crazy stuff happening. Like we set the arrow on fire, and we had...
She was on America's Got Talent, right?
Yeah, so she went on that after
she's like
this.
A crazy...
Yeah.
Like contortion archer. I don't know.
Well, there's a... Do you have time for like a really quick story on that?
Yeah.
So really funny story about that is Sofie and I were in contact because I was practicing at Santa Monica, just like working out and stuff. And she was really good for like a 15-year-old girl. I think she was 15 back then. And it's like 3 years ago, 3.5 now. And we were just chatting and stuff. And we were like, oh, you want to do shoot and everything? And she was like, heck yeah, I'm up for it. Then we just got to brainstorming. And then we were like, what can we do that's really cool? Like it's almost like impossible looking. And I said... we have like an explosion or something? And she was like, oh, I could shoot like a arrow through like water balloons or something. And I went, what if we like said something? Feet. Yeah, right. So she's like in the scorpion pose, like her legs are up here and she's holding the bow and arrow with her feet. And she's just like holding the handstand.
Yeah,
it looks wild.
Wow.
And it's cool. It's really cool.
Yeah. And so I was like, can we do like an explosion? What, is that too dangerous? I said, why would I say that? and then she was like, oh, we could maybe like, so her dad chimed in, and then he likes building stuff too. And this is before I had my shop, so I couldn't really build a lot of stuff. But he kind of proposed this idea of maybe like having like a gas line from an air compressor that intersects and then shoots out the gasoline right before the fire arrow hits the target, and then it combusts. So the thing is, we tried that a few times. It worked here and there. We got some good shots, but then ultimately just set the whole thing on fire. And then we like put chalk on her arrow so it like trails behind it.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
That's cool. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and then what happened was, not trying to get credit for it, I'm just saying, but she went on America's Got Talent the next year, and then by that time, her dad, like, he took the thing that we did, and then he totally remastered it into this crazy, like, I think he calls it magician's powder or something,
Nice.
or something where as soon as it touches, it just ignites into whatever shape you carved into it. And so I think that because of that shoot, he was like so motivated to like make it better and better, because I don't think he was satisfied that he just like he mastered it. And so what they do is that act, and I'm just like, holy crap, he made it so much crazier, like what they're doing now.
That's cool. Yeah, we'll definitely link that in, because it's a really cool. I mean, the work you did is cool. We'll look at the other thing. Who cares about him? No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. No, but
BTS video is great.
But yeah, we'll link the BTS video, man. Well, dude, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, man.
It was really fun. I enjoyed talking to you guys.
Super. Hour goes by quick.
Oh, it was an hour?
Yeah. So, we'll leave it at that. All right, guys, don't forget to... What's that? Oh, yeah. Yeah, thanks to Oz back there. Thank you for running all the cameras. But don't forget to rate, subscribe, tell a friend about the Run with Toby podcast. We will see you guys on the next one.